It's January 8th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with artillery fire from North Korea. Pyongyang fired artillery towards waters off its western coast during a drill on Sunday for the third straight day. The North says that there was no artillery fire on Saturday, just mere explosions, which Seoul's military called comical, low-grade propaganda. The Israeli military says it has successfully dismantled Hamas's command structure in Northern Gaza. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on his fourth diplomatic mission to the Middle East to prevent the conflict in Gaza from spreading. All 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes will remain grounded until the U.S. aviation regulator makes sure the jets are safe. The Federal Aviation Administration has been inspecting the planes after part of an Alaska Airlines plane's fuselage fell off on Friday. North Korea continued firing artillery over the weekend. The sister of the North's leader Kim Yo-jong taunted the South Korean military about its detection capabilities, saying Saturday's firing was not real. Our Choi Min-jung starts off this morning.
Tensions on the inter-Korean maritime border are rising as North Korea on Sunday fired artillery shells into waters off its western coast for the third consecutive day. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff detected around 90 artillery shots on Sunday afternoon. The regime fired over 200 shells on Friday and 60 on Saturday, which landed in the maritime buffer zone above the northern limit line. However, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's sister Kim Yo-jong, in an attempt to shame the South Korean military's detection capabilities, claimed the North conducted a, quote, deceptive operation on Saturday. She said the North had not actually fired 60 artillery shells, but instead detonated explosive, stimulating the sound of artillery fire. Shortly after, the regime's Korean People's Army reiterated Kim's claim. However, Seoul's JCS immediately dismissed the statement, calling it a, quote, comedy-like propaganda that is once again attempting to damage trust in the military and cause conflict within the South. The South Korean military added that Kim Yo-jong announced a, quote, false statement as she was surprised by the South's detection capabilities. North Korea has been intensifying its threats on the maritime border despite the South's repeated warnings to halt the provocations. Tensions between the two Koreas have escalated after the regime terminated the September 19th inter-Korean military agreement last November, following South Korea's partial suspension of the pact in protest of the regime's spy satellite launch. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
What the North is insisting is that they have fooled the South through what they call deceptive operations. Let's dissect the North's move with Stephen Norberg this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. The North claims that the fire drills were just deceptive operations. It's also legitimizing the drills, insisting that the South does the same. What's your take on the argument?
Well, the important thing here is that we've had a volley allegedly of 350 artillery over the course of 3 days. So it's the persistence of that. Whether or not there were psychological operations involved, as Kim Yo-jong claims, is a little less relevant. That's simply a back and forth and clearly designed to provoke the ROK military and the U.S. ROK alliance. What's most important, though, is we've a lot of fire. And so if you live near Yeongpyeong-do or the islands around it, clearly it's not a time when you're feeling you're at your safest. That risk to security is important because it's a challenge at the northern limit line. However, do note that everybody has fired and returned fire within the lines that have been set out. And so it's important not to overplay the hand, but it's important to realize it's a serious start to the new year and one that deems the necessity to try to get inter-Korean relations to a better place and try to establish a little more calm across the DMZ.
Right, like you and my colleague Min-jung reported, the North carried out live fire drills for 3 straight days since Friday. Then what's the intention behind the North's provocations at the beginning of the year?
Well, clearly they're trying to arrest local and international headlines. A show of demonstration after the plenum meeting by Kim Jong-un but also designed in a world distracted by Gaza and Ukraine, that North Korea is saying, we're still here and we're starting the year with these types of artillery rounds. That garners a lot of international attention. It raises questions about future missile tests. We've just had a year where we had 5 intercontinental ballistic missile tests. And of course, there's concern about a 7th nuclear test. So at this time, when tensions are high, when rhetoric is high on both sides of the DMZ, it's important to keep a measured tone and to try to look at the North's enhancements of their technological capability in a regional and a global context. So trying to grab the headlines is their main goal here. And we should understand that by way of North Korean propaganda and be somewhat constrained in our response beyond the military response to downtick the message and to try to de-amplify that message and reduce tensions.
So the North may be seeking some attention from the international community at the moment. And today here in South Korea, January 8th, marks the leader Kim Jong-un's 40th birthday. How likely is it that there'll be another round of military provocations like the fire drills over the weekend? And how likely is it that there'll be maybe possibly a 7th nuclear test? What do you think?
Well, we'll see what happens in the coming few months. The North Korean leader has not demarcated his birthday yet as a national holiday. We'll see how he marks his 40th observance. The upcoming anniversaries of the birth of his father, Kim Jong-il, and his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, generally mean heightened activity. They're also responding to U.S. ROK military exercises of late. So do expect to see some heightened activity, and let us hope that it doesn't go to a 7th nuclear test and that there's an ability to stem what we have seen as a rash of long-range missile testing. And so their enhancements on the missile front should be very concerning to us, as well as questions about the level of plutonium that they're harvesting. This warrants a lot of good attention and really an intent to get to the negotiating table with North Korea sooner than not.
Sure. Kim Jong-un may stay low profile on his birthday like he did last year. Now, will Kim Jong-un turning 40, though, be a turning point for him in any way with regard to his role over the regime in the new year? What do you think? Maybe further putting Chue, his daughter, in the spotlight as his successor?
Sure. There has been a lot of attention about Kim Jue and whether she will step up. She's only 10 years old, so there would have to be probably a time of regency were she to lead in. That's what South Korean national intelligence has been reporting through the National Assembly, that she is the most likely candidate. But of course, we haven't been able to always predict that. Kim Jong-un came as something of a surprise when he moved up the ranks under Kim Jong-il and emerged as the preference. However, for Kim Jong-un, it's important. It's 40 years, which means we no longer can refer to the younger leader or the new leader of North Korea. He's firmly been in control since his father's 2011 passing and his assumption of duties in 2012. So we're marking now 12 years of Kim Jong-un being in control. And so that means that we're dealing with a leader who has matured, and let us hope that there's a way to encourage him to a more responsible role on the global stage. Clearly, the outreach to China and Russia of late has concerned the U.S., Korea, Japan trilateral. And so we'll have to see how this emerges. But it seems that the leader is in no way inclined at this point to any sort of more peaceful resolution, but really has upticked both rhetoric and these tests, which should concern us.
Definitely. Before I let you go briefly, Kim Jong-un also sent a message to Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida over the weekend, expressing his condolences over the recent series of deadly earthquakes over in Japan. This is a pretty rare move for Kim Jong-un to make, though, isn't it?
It is a rare move, and we haven't had a move like that by a North Korean leader. The number 2 did in 2011 after the tragic earthquake and tsunami there, but we have not had this sort of expression. It's important to note because perhaps Kim Jong-un is trying to project himself as more of a regional and global leader, and it is an outreach to the Japanese and an expression of concern. At the same time, he also reached out to Iran and expressed concern about the bombing there that killed so many. So Kim Jong-un trying to look like he's projecting himself more globally now. And that may have implications that we should note, in particular if we're able to transition that to some international leverage on him. And perhaps Japan has inroads now with North Korea and could be coordinated through the South Korea, Japan, U.S. trilateral in a way that's constructive. But trying to engage North Korea now is important because the rhetoric has increased on both sides and the tensions are high.
Indeed. Thanks so much for sharing your insight this morning. You enjoy your afternoon there.
Thank you. Aloha, and appreciate the opportunity.
Israel says it has destroyed Hamas command in Northern Gaza and that the military group is now operating in the area only sporadically and without commanders. Despite U.S. and EU officials visiting the Middle East, tensions continue to flare in the region. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Israeli military said Sunday that it has destroyed Hamas command in northern Gaza, adding that the army has killed at least 8,000 militants in the area. According to Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Daniel Hagari, Hamas is now operating in the area only sporadically and without commanders. He added that they are now focusing on dismantling the militant group in southern and central Gaza. Despite visits by diplomatic leaders from the U.S. and the EU, tensions in the Middle East continue to rise, with reciprocal attacks between Israel and Lebanon's pro-Iran armed faction Hezbollah. According to Reuters and CNN, Hezbollah announced that it fired 62 missiles at Mount Meron Air Base in northern Israel on Saturday, which it called a response to the assassination of senior Hamas leader in Beirut last week. The Israeli military said Sunday that it responded to the attacks by deploying fighter jets to bomb Hezbollah facilities in southern Lebanon. U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken and High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Joseph Borrell made trips to the Middle East as they tried to quell the tensions in the region. Meanwhile, the Qatari Prime Minister says the assassination of a high-ranking Hamas official, Saleh al-Aruri, in Beirut last week affected efforts to mediate a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. However, the Prime Minister vowed to continue mediation efforts. Hamas halted all ceasefire and hostage release negotiations with Israel after the death of its senior leader. A number of Hamas officials, including al-Aruri, were killed in a drone attack in Beirut. U.S. officials have pointed to Israel for conducting the attack. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Russia plans to conduct a total of 7 intercontinental ballistic missile tests this year. Sputnik News reported the announcement by the Russian Ministry of Defense, which also revealed that the strategic missile forces have conducted over 20 ICBM launches as part of advanced missile system testing and missile training in the past 5 years. Since the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Russia has occasionally hinted at possibly using nuclear weapons and has conducted large-scale nuclear exercises involving the deployment of ICBMs. Last month, Russia claimed that the development of the next-generation ICBM called RS-28 Sarmat, capable of carrying multiple warheads, will soon be completed. The death toll from the 7.6 magnitude earthquake in Japan's Ishikawa prefecture last week has risen to 128 on Sunday. Some 560 others are reported injured, while 195 residents of the prefecture are still unaccounted for. A woman in her 90s was rescued from under the rubble in Suzu City on Saturday, 124 hours after the initial earthquake. According to authorities, it's rare for people to be rescued alive beyond 72 hours after the quake, as the chance of survival in a disaster is set to drop significantly after the first 3 days. The operation of scores of Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes will be on hold until the U.S. aviation regulator confirms they are safe to fly. Countries around the world that operate the jets are also carrying out their own safety inspections. Our Shin Ha-young reports.
Travel plans for thousands of passengers in the U.S. are in disarray after regulators grounded almost 200 Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircrafts following an incident on an Alaska Airlines flight bound for Ontario, California, which resulted in an emergency landing. According to Reuters, shortly after taking off from Portland, a door panel on a Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft blew out at an altitude of around 16,000 feet, resulting in a sudden drop in cabin pressure. There were no fatalities, but some injuries were reported.
and it wasn't like any other turbulence just because the masks had came down too. So that's when I knew like, oh gosh, this is something way different. And yeah, I started freaking out.
The U.S. aviation regulator ordered that 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes be grounded and checked. Alaska Airlines immediately suspended the operation of its 65 Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft.
At this stage of an investigation, everything's in. We go very broad. Nothing's excluded.
And it's not only the U.S. The EU's Aviation Safety Agency has also ordered safety inspections. Meanwhile, Seoul's Transport Ministry on Sunday told South Korean Airlines to conduct safety checks on Boeing 737 MAX planes as a preemptive safety measure. Boeing's flagship model, the 737 MAX, has been involved in 2 major crashes in the past 5 years. In October 2018, a 737 MAX jet flown by Indonesia's Lion Air crashed, killing all 189 on board. In March 2019, an Ethiopian Airlines flight crashed, resulting in the death of all 157 passengers. 신하영, Arirang News.
South Korea's overseas plant orders last year increased 25% on-year on strong demand in the Middle East. The Trade Ministry announced on Monday that the total plant orders in 2023 amounted to $30.23 billion, exceeding its $30 billion target. The highest performance in 8 years was largely driven by large-scale project contracts in the Middle East that accounted for 38% of the total orders. Among the individual orders, the largest was the Hyundai Engineering and Construction's $5 billion contract with Saudi Arabia's state oil company Aramco to build a petrochemical plant. 2024 is set to be another exciting one on the K-culture front. 2 of BTS members will be done with their mandatory military service, and there are also so many shows on the way for K-drama fans to binge watch. Our culture correspondent Song Yujin has more.
As we step into 2024, here's a sneak peek of what the culture scene has in store. If you thought 2023 was a treat for streamers, brace yourself for an even more exciting lineup ahead. A bunch of blockbuster sequels are in store. Netflix is set to drop the 2nd season of the Emmy Award-winning Squid Game in the latter half of the year. If you're into real-life survival challenges, get ready for Physical 100 Season 2, which last year topped the platform's non-English show chart. And don't forget Apple TV's breakout hit Pachinko, the winner of Best Foreign Language Series at the 2023 Critics' Choice Awards. The small screen is also making room for big screen titans. Cannes-winning filmmaker Park Chan-wook is collaborating with Netflix for the first time with a period thriller called War and Revolt. Another Cannes winner, actor Song Kang-ho, is making his drama debut with Disney Plus's Uncle Samsik. The silver screen is gearing up for a comeback after a lower-than-expected performance last year.
Last year, the success of 12/12 The Day signaled a comeback for moviegoers in theaters. We're looking at a bunch of titles lined up to premiere this year, more than what we had in 2023. Quite a lot of films had their premieres pushed back because of COVID-19.
The highlight? The sequel to the crime thriller Veteran is set to premiere at the year-end. Part 1 from 2015 sold over 13 million tickets. While waiting for that, film enthusiasts can enjoy Parasite director Bong Joon-ho's latest creation, Mickey 17, in March, and the 4th installment of the Roundup series in May. In the world of K-pop, get ready for K-pop-style groups.
Before, the strategy was to include 1 or 2 non-Korean members in each group to appeal to the global market. The trend now is creating K-pop-style groups tailored to the culture and preferences of the local audience, sometimes without any Korean members.
JYP Entertainment's global girl group Vicha is set to debut this month, while HYBE's Cat's Eye will drop their first album in the 2nd quarter. And for all the BTS armies out there, the wait is almost over. Jin completes his military service in June, with J-Hope following suit in October. So get ready to immerse yourself in the world of K-culture in the year 2024. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Ji-young, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin today in China, which has imposed sanctions on 5 American defense companies in response to U.S. arms sales to Taiwan and U.S. sanctions on Chinese individuals and companies. Chinese state media CCTV reported on Sunday that the sanctions would freeze any assets in China and ban firms or individuals in China from doing business with the defense companies. The 5 companies named are BAE Systems Land and Armament, Alient Tech Systems and Operation, AeroVironment, Viasat, and Data Link Solutions. China warned last month that it would take countermeasures against companies involved in the $300 million defense deal with Taiwan approved by the U.S. The sanctions, seen as a largely symbolic move, come days before the Taiwanese presidential election to be held on the January 13th. Now moving over to Bangladesh, where a fire at the country's biggest Rohingya refugee camp has left more than 8,000 without shelter. The head of Ukia Fire Station said that the fire began on Saturday night at Kutu Palong camp in Cox's Bazar and spread fast, leaving about 1,040 shelters destroyed. Although the cause of the fire is yet unknown, Refugee Commissioner Mizanur Rahman on Sunday said there are suspicions of arson. Previously, a massive fire in the same camp in March 2021 killed at least 15 and destroyed over 10,000 shelters. Kutu Palong refugee camp is currently the largest refugee camp in the world, with around 1 million Rohingya refugees. Rohingya Muslims have been flowing into Bangladesh since Myanmar's military crackdown in 2017. Eurozone inflation in December increased to 2.9% across the bloc, up from November's 2.4%. This is less than the 3% that financial experts had forecast, but it does mark the end of 7 months of decline. December's rise supports the European Central Bank's prediction that the headline inflation will average 2.7% this year. Currently, the European Bank has a record high interest rate of above 4%. ECB President Christine Lagarde has emphasized that no rate cuts were considered in December's meeting. Lastly, the Palace of Aigai in northern Greece, where Alexander the Great was proclaimed king, fully reopened to the public on Friday after completing a 16-year restoration. The largest building of classical Greece, covering 15,000 square meters, was renovated in a more than $22 million project, partly funded by the European Union. The palace was originally built more than 2,300 years ago during the reign of Alexander the Great's father, Philip II, where Aigai was the royal capital of Kingdom of Macedonia.
Good morning. There has been a sharp drop in temperatures. Morning lows are 5 to 8 degrees lower than yesterday, with a cold wave advisory issued in inland areas. Seoul is waking up to a low of -10 degrees, but it feels more like -15 degrees to start off the day. Even Busan is having sub-zero morning temperatures, so bundle up. Also, there seems to be lingering snow and ice on the sidewalk, so walk with extra care today. The East Coast, however, is under a dry weather advisory with strong winds, so fire safety should come first. We'll have sunny skies all day with good air quality, but Seoul tops out at 0 degrees, feeling more like -2. Gwangju topping out at 4 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Then a mix of rain and snow is in the forecast for Tuesday, starting from the capital and west of central regions, gradually spreading nationwide over the course of the day. Well, winter lovers might be disappointed, but the cold snap will weaken after Tuesday's wintry precipitation. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Why don't we go to a magical place where we can make our wishes?
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's lying next sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's January 8th here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yoon, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Chiji.
Good morning.
Good morning, and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Seoul's elementary schools are seeing more multicultural students. Seoul Metropolitan Office found that in 9 schools, at least 40% of the students were from multicultural backgrounds. This means when at least one parent is of non-Korean nationality or has decided to get naturalized. 2 elementary schools saw the proportion of these students surpass 70% in a classroom, pointing to how Korea is seeing a surge in international marriages and transitioning into a more diverse society. And speed is everything when it comes to handling an emergency situation. That's why the National Fire Agency on Sunday announced its plans to replace all license plates on fire trucks with an emergency one by the end of this year. An emergency license plate will only be given to emergency vehicles like fire trucks, police cars, and ambulances, and will allow them to quickly pass through unmanned cutoff devices. This policy started in 2022 to make sure people clear the roads for vehicles to quickly move within the golden time. Until now, the number of used and emergency license plate was 998, and officials have decided to designate 999 as well, which means by the end of this year, all emergency vehicles will have license plates starting with the numbers 999 or 998. And moving on to our last story, there is a large number of people who don't have the most positive outlook for their workplace this year. According to a civic group who surveyed 1,000 workers on what they're expected to see their jobs, 45% predicted their work environment to wither. Specifically, 1 out of 5 were concerned that there would be more layoffs and company restructuring amid worsening economic conditions. Around 15% feared that they may be converted from a regular worker to non-regular worker, meaning their contracts would change. Approximately 10% thought their wages may be cut. Now, here at the studio, what do you guys think? Why do you guys think respondents had a relatively negative outlook for their workplace? And also, what are your personal predictions for this year in terms of your own career path?
Yeah, well, I've got 2 perspectives of this. I've been talking about this with my wife. She also worries about her job security at the moment. She works in an office, a 9-to-5 job. Different to me. As a freelancer, we do expect to always have jobs changing on us. So most of us have grown a little numb to it, so it's not a big difference for us. But a good example is even the industry that we're in at the moment. If you take the English broadcasting industry, and if you've been keeping up with the news of the English news, we notice that it's getting smaller and smaller, and therefore a lot of us, including freelancers, are worried about what's going to happen within the next 6 months to a year. Maybe we won't have a job. That's something that worries me a lot, and I can understand from even a full-time perspective that it's also quite worrying to them.
Exactly, and I think it's also having to do with this time of the year. Every single time it's the new year, we look back on what happened last year and also what we can look forward to. And one of the biggest factors that we consider is what would be happening to our workplace, what we'll be doing in terms of relationships, our career path. So in that sense, I do understand that a lot of people may be worried, which is why they have a negative outlook. But why do you think our generation is like this? And what are your personal prospects for your own job market?
Well, first of all, businesses aim to make profit. So when there's an economic downturn, it's inevitable for them to cut down on their operation costs, including the labor costs.
Right.
And I've actually had one friend of mine who quit her company because her company didn't fulfill her promise to switch her to a full-time position when they promised that they would after 1 year, but she didn't see any future in it. So she didn't like the instability that the company was giving her. So it's of course very natural for employees to be worried about such a situation and these decisions. But as a freelancer, I'm not directly affected by the restructuring of these companies. However, I work on a gig basis, and if these gigs reduce in number, that would definitely affect me. But I hope that won't happen.
I hope so
year.
too. And I think that's why, based on our prospects for a job market in the new year, that makes us shape different resolutions, which brings me to our discussion topic of the day. A week has already passed in the new year, and a question we should be asking ourselves right about now is whether we're still on track with our New Year's resolutions. So are you guys doing a good job in keeping your New Year's resolution so far? I mean, it's only been 8 days.
It's only been 8 days. Well, one of my goals was to keep a diary every day, and I've been able to keep it actually. Well, I've missed a day over the weekend because I was away, but I made up for it by writing 2 entries last night. And if you see on the screen, that's the diary I'm writing.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and this is the diary that I've been writing in the past, but the pink one was the one that I started this year. And I've also started going to the gym again. I've consciously set achievable goals for myself to avoid overstretching and getting disappointed in myself if I fail to maintain them.
I have to say the diaries that we're seeing on the screen right now is just so eloquent. It's just really detailed, and I can see different colors you're using, and your writing itself is really nice. And a personal question though is, because I recommended journaling to you, right? But as your New Year's resolution, do you think recording down everything, whether that's your emotional state of mind or what happened, is helping you?
You know what I realized? I am not used to expressing my emotions to even myself. And I think I need practice with that, because all I've been writing down in my diary are the things that happened to me that day, not so much how I felt and what my concerns were, etc. But I think I should change my focus a little and try to really talk to myself, have a conversation with myself, and figure out how I've been feeling throughout the day.
Yeah, I think that's a great New Year's resolution, and based on what we've seen on the screen, I hope you continue to do it, but at the same time, I'm worried a little because it's just so perfect. I don't know how long that can go for you to write such perfect entries. What about you, Walter?
Yeah, I don't really make New Year's resolutions. I used to do it, but it was the same thing every year, like save money, lose weight, make money as well. But I do set out like small goals, I would say, in the process of going through the whole year. I guess it's kind of like a resolution, but not so much like the typical ones that I just mentioned. So I would focus, for me, I want to focus more on things that I love doing, which is something that I'm already doing. So I guess that's the difference between, you know, hey, I have to lose 10 kilograms before the end of the year, etc. For me, I want to get back, as you can see, every time I come on screen, I'm a content creator. I'd love to get back into content creating and also work more in this broadcasting industry as well. Those are things that I've already achieved but would like to continue. So I wouldn't say it's more of a New Year's resolution, just a continuation of what I've already achieved so far and only hopefully growing in the business.
I think you guys have really valid points, and I think New Year's resolutions is about really boosting your productivity and how you want to live out that year. And that's why our generation seems to be following a keyword, and that keyword, as I mentioned just now, is productivity. We're saying it in our New Year's resolutions, just like Walter. Even if you don't have a resolution, that could be a value of life you're trying to live through. So let's walk through the latest productivity-based trends that our generation is trying to really pursue whenever they're making resolutions or trying to live the new year.
Yeah, well, I've got 2 to mention, and one of them is called the Miracle Morning.
Okay.
So a Miracle Morning is similar to like an early bird. People who start their morning early, like let's say 4 a.m., 5 a.m., a bit like me these days, but not that I want to wake up at 5 a.m., but I do. Now, obviously, during this time, it adds a few hours onto your work day or even just your day in general. And this is the time where a lot of people either exercise or study. I can't bring myself to do either of them at that time. I just eat breakfast for the whole time. But yes, giving yourself an early start to the day is more meaningful, I guess, and therefore giving you more time to accomplish things that you want to do throughout the day. And another one we just just mentioned and we talked about, obviously, is writing a diary.
Ooh.
Now, I know that both of you keep diaries, so that's quite interesting. I don't, because I don't have the impeccable writing of Chihi. I get so put off by my own writing that I just don't write anymore. I actually heard the sales of diaries actually increases at the end of every year. That's because either Starbucks has a great promotion going on, or people really want to start writing diaries. And decorating diaries. Do you decorate your diary, Chihi?
Yeah, that's really nice.
I color code them, yes.
Okay, so that's decorating, I would say. Yes, this is sort of a trend as well amongst the MZ generation. Diaries are obviously a great way to sort out your day, your week, your year, and decoration is always great because it gives you something else to do throughout the day.
Exactly, but that really just reflects how our generation seems to be really productivity-based. We really like to reflect, and always it's this time of the year when we're journaling a lot, seeing what we're doing for the past few days. I mean, it's only been 8 days, but still, it really gives us a clear slate and a clear state of mind. What about you, Chi? Could you walk us through the latest productivity-based trends among our generation?
Sure. So to go a little deeper with the diary writing. Recently, people are not just keeping a diary, but they're really logging their daily lives and writing about their concerns, regrets, reflections, and resolutions that are really sometimes hard to share with other people. So diaries would become a place where they really, like I said earlier, it's a way of having a conversation with yourself and looking into yourself, looking into your feelings, how you would manage them alone, etc. And the fourth trend would be meditation. So it's another good New Year's resolution, and people should really think about, you know, going off on all the online platforms and really being focused on that moment. And people really don't give themselves enough time these days during the day to meditate or just not think about anything. But the effects of these couple of minutes of meditation can do wonders for the mental health. So many are pursuing it as well.
So whether that be starting off a morning as a miracle morning or journaling and writing down stuff and meditating, these seem to be our generation's new resolution trends. Then how would you guys read into this? Like, what do you think our resolutions and the trends that we're trying to pursue say about our generation, and what type of encompassing unique traits do we have?
Well, we've mentioned this multiple times in previous shows before, but one common trait of the younger generation is that they're really focused on themselves, and due to challenging social and economic conditions, it's really difficult for them to secure stable employment, purchase a house, or get married even. So as a result, many young people turn to self-improvement as a means of feeling better about themselves and enhancing their competitiveness as well. So by achieving small milestones, they derive a sense of satisfaction and pleasure as well. And also, they often share their goals and progress with their peers as a way of staying motivated and supporting each other through these challenges. We've mentioned like maintaining, staying financially frugal, for example, or you're just sharing your fitness routine with each other to motivate each other.
I think those are very good ways that really encompass our generation. Would you like to add on to this question?
Yeah, so obviously we are the generation that had to deal with the pandemic. So during the pandemic, a lot of people didn't get to do things like, you know, work on themselves a bit more or accomplish things that they wanted to accomplish because of the restrictions that we had. And now that I guess things are relatively back to normal, this has given people more of a boost to try and achieve the things that, you know, I think still that we should be 2 years younger because we got 2 years taken away from us. And so these people, including myself, who didn't do much during the pandemic, are now giving themselves a great reason to really try hard when it comes to accomplishing goals.
I think that's a really good point you made. The COVID-19 pandemic has definitely shaped how our generation is trying to pursue life. Now, we asked our viewers to also share their own set of New Year's resolutions, also their know-how on how they're trying to stick to them. Here's what 3 of them had to say. Take a look at the screen to find out. So Johnny said making small attainable goals instead of focusing on a major one where it may seem easy to give up is one way to go. Tasmia said just putting the resolutions as daily reminders on the phone with an alarm can be helpful so that we can be reminded about it. And Graciela said daily resolutions take to major resolutions and make the road easier. Write them down, put it in sticky notes on your fridge. You know what? I have to say that all of our viewers are giving out really good tips. I personally also write them down on my my phone as well. I'm a big fan of phone reminders, which always makes me remember what type of resolutions I have. But we're going to include another Gen Z and hear about how she's been trying to be more productive this year and how she's trying to keep her resolutions. Stay tuned for this live interview. We're going to talk to a fellow Gen Z who's lived in both the States and Canada. She's currently living in Seoul. Welcome, Jung.
Hi.
All right, Lee-jung, so you are now spending the New Year's. It's been a week. So why don't you first share your New Year's resolutions? What type of plans did you make and why?
First thing is to drink once a week. I've suffered from stomach ache from time to time with no reason, and drinking made it worse. Just until a few days ago, I endured it because I love drinking. But from this year, I decided to change. And like other people at my age, especially as I'm on last semester of university, my biggest resolution is to start my career and successfully follow the path. And financially being independent from my parents. I know I'd be exhausted both physically and mentally, so I wish I could keep positive, motivated, and healthy.
You know, those are all three amazing resolutions, and I hope you're keeping them, given that it's only day 8, but let's see you continue it on throughout the weeks.
And I like how you make positive resolutions for yourself. Even with drinking, you're not saying, I'm not going to drink more than 3 times a week. You're saying, I'm going to drink once a week, which is, yes. And so my second question to you is, what do you think are some common resolutions found among our generation in Korea? Are there any distinctive difference from the trends found in other countries?
The most common ones, I think, are related to health and self-development, like losing weight, exercising more, and reading books. Thinking of my friends and family in the States and Canada, most of the resolutions are similar, but I guess those in Korea are a bit more burdensome. For example, my cousin and friends' resolutions are to travel more, to spend more time with my family, to have new hobbies, while mine are to get a job and become an independent self, although we are at the same age. I'm not sure, but I think it's because age means more in Korea than other countries. Like when you're this age, you should prepare your career and get a job or get married, something like that.
I see.
So it's January 8th, and you said you would drink once a week. So that means you should have drunk at least twice by now. But do you think you're doing a good job so far keeping your resolutions? And any tips you'd like to give to take to heart yourself or on achieving all these New Year's resolutions?
Well, resolutions that can be achieved with my own will, I'd say yes. I think it's important to make concrete action plans, like several detailed plans under one big goal. For me, I always make mandala art planners like this.
Wow. That's very organized. I think, gee, it's pretty as organized as yours.
And I make these planners, and also as resolutions are easily faded, I really try not to forget to make daily planners so that I can keep motivated every day and keep on track. Like, I also have a planner, so it seems like this.
Wow. You're a very organized person. But I think those are all really good pointers out there. Thank you so much, Lee-jung. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and hopefully you really set the guidelines on how we should better keep our resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, New Year's resolutions shouldn't be a barometer of how good of a person we are. I think we should just use these resolutions as a guideline or indicator to what we seem to be prioritizing and valuing in the new year. On that note, we can come down to the conclusion that many young adults in Korea are choosing either the katseng route or the ketseng route, which we will be explaining to you guys more tomorrow. But what do you guys think is the more popular option among these two key buzzwords in Korea, and if you can briefly explain them?
Well, I think more people are choosing the option of taking a break nowadays, the ketseng, which is to take a proper rest, because it's important to rest and rejuvenate yourself just as much as it is important to enjoy life to the fullest. And for me as well, personally, I would choose this route too, because I've been feeling quite tired lately. Well, not just this year, because we're only 1 week into this year, but starting last year.
May I just say one thing?
Yes.
Maybe it's because you write way too perfect journals. I think if you're a bit sloppy, maybe it's going to make you a little less tired.
Maybe. So I would choose the ketseng route.
Okay, ketseng route. And then there's the katseng route. Like, can you explain what that is and which one you would choose?
Yeah, so it's for more people who are more diligent.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would say that I'm the katseng route. I mentioned that I get up early these days and I try prioritizing some tasks, even though they're just small tasks, they're not big ones. And but I'd also go around with a bit of the ketseng route as well, because I like to rest. So I'm kind of in the middle. It's really hard for me to say that I'm one or the other. I'm very ambitious, but at the same time I can be quite lazy. I think the word is the one I'm using. The term I'm trying to go for. So. Diligence with a little bit of legroom is where I'm at the moment.
I think that's ketseng then, because ketseng is living like a god and trying like self-productivity and just pushing yourself to the fullest, right?
Passion.
Yeah.
You can't rest between the you know. I think I can really put in the extra mile. Working smart, not hard.
Oh, that is really nice.
That is what I live by.
But I think these buzzwords are really encapsulating what our generation is trying to go for at this time of the year, as we've dedicated our time today in talking about New Year's resolutions. I think the key word that we want to leave you guys on with is what we're going to be doing, reflecting on about last year and really prospecting on what can be happening, whether that's living like a god or getting leisure and rest time in between. And we'll be expanding on this question in more depth tomorrow, so please stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Chiji.
Thank you.
And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's calling? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이